She smiled when she told me she had a boyfriend, and I knew, in that moment, that everything was a lie. It wasn't just the words that stung. It was the look in her eyes, the calmness in her voice. As if breaking my heart was the easiest thing in the world. For weeks, I had been wrapped up in her laughter, her warmth, her promises. I thought we had something real. But she had played me, and she wasn't even sorry. Her name was Emma. To everyone else, she was the picture of success, beautiful, charming, and always surrounded by people who adored her. But I saw something more. I saw the woman who shared secrets with me late at night, who talked about dreams and futures. I thought I knew her. I trusted her. But in one swift message, all of that crumbled. Sorry, I'm with someone else now. Please don't contact me again. It's over. It hit me like a punch to the gut, the words burning through me. She blocked me on everything, social media, texts, calls. And I was left alone, drowning in confusion and pain. What hurt most wasn't the rejection, though. It was the suddenness of it, the coldness. The realization that everything she had told me was nothing more than a carefully constructed act. A facade. I had to know who this other guy was. Who could replace me so easily? What had I missed? What part of me had she been pretending to love? I wasn't going to let this go. I couldn't. This wasn't just about my broken heart anymore. It was about finding out the truth. And the truth, I realized, would come with consequences. So, I did what anyone would do when they felt betrayed and lost. I walked into her office building, my heart pounding, the weight of my anger and betrayal pushing me forward. And this time, when I saw her, I wasn't going to ask. I was going to make her answer. I first met Emma on a rainy Thursday evening at a cafe tucked away on a quiet street corner. It was the kind of place where people went to escape the rush of the world, a haven for writers, artists, and daydreamers. I wasn't one for poetry or drama, but there was something about her that caught my attention. Maybe it was her quiet confidence, or the way her laughter seemed to fill the room, pulling people in. She had a presence, an energy that made everything else fade away when she spoke. At first, it was just casual. She was a friend of a friend, someone I'd meet up with occasionally in a group, but over time, the meetings became more frequent. We found ourselves texting late into the night, sharing everything from our daily struggles to our most personal dreams. Emma would talk about her career ambitions, her hopes of rising to the top in the competitive world of marketing. She had this vision of success, of making a name for herself in a way that would leave everyone in awe. It was intoxicating, the way she saw the world with such determination and confidence. Her eyes. Those eyes, always sparkled when she talked about her dreams. She had this way of making you believe in her vision, in us, in the future we could build together. She'd smile and tell me how lucky she felt to have someone like me by her side, someone who understood her ambitions. And the more I listened, the more I fell for her. But I never realized I was falling into a trap. It was subtle at first, the way Emma managed to maintain this perfect balance of attention. She always made me feel like I was the most important person in her life. There were late-night talks that felt deep, meaningful, as though we were building something real. But when I'd ask her about her past relationships, she'd always deflect, changing the subject, or laughing it off with a shrug. I didn't question it much at the time. She had an air of mystery, and it only made her seem more alluring. I was happy to play the role of the supportive friend who turned something more, something deeper. Over the months, I grew more invested. It wasn't just about being her confidant anymore. I wanted her to be a part of my life, completely. I could see a future with her, weekends away, quiet nights spent together, planning a life that would be built on the trust and connection we had. At least, that's what I thought we had. But something started to shift. I noticed her pulling back, just a little. Small things. She'd cancel plans, or she'd seem distracted when we were together. There was a faint tension in the air, an unspoken distance that I couldn't quite place. But whenever I'd try to confront her about it, she'd reassure me with that same warm smile, telling me everything was fine. It was just work, she said. She was just busy. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It was during one of these conversations, after an unusually cold evening, that she made the comment that would haunt me for the rest of my life. She casually mentioned a boyfriend, in passing, as if it was the most normal thing in the world. I froze. My mind raced. The word was like a slap in the face. Boyfriend? I repeated, the confusion obvious in my voice. I tried to brush it off, but a knot formed in my stomach. I didn't realize you were seeing someone. She laughed, brushing her hair behind her ear. Yeah, well, it's complicated, she said lightly, but there was something in her eyes that told me more. Something I didn't want to believe. She changed the subject quickly, but my mind wouldn't let go. The suddenness of the admission, the fact that she had never once mentioned this person before, felt wrong. It was as if I wasn't supposed to know. The more I thought about it, the more questions surfaced. Why hadn't she told me? Had I been just a placeholder in her life? Was all the time we spent together a lie? I couldn't make sense of it, but one thing was clear, I needed answers. And so, I did what anyone would do when left in the dark, unable to understand the actions of someone they trusted. I started to dig deeper. I didn't want to confront her just yet. I wanted to find out for myself, to see if I could piece together the truth. That's when things got messy. I began noticing small inconsistencies in her stories, details that didn't add up. She would say she had to work late, but then I would see her social media posts tagging other places, other people. Sometimes, she would text me but seem off, like she was rushing or distracted. Each time I questioned her, she would brush it off with a smile, but it was becoming clear that something was shifting. And then the moment came. That night, when everything exploded. She sent me that message. The one I couldn't believe, the one that shattered everything. Sorry, I'm with someone else now. Please don't contact me again. It's over. That was when I realized the truth. She had been seeing someone else all along. She had never been honest with me about her life, her feelings, or our relationship. I was just someone to pass the time with until someone better came along. I wasn't the one she wanted. It wasn't just the betrayal of being lied to, it was the fact that I had given her my trust, my heart, my time, and she had used it all without any regard for the damage she was causing. Now, I had to make her pay. I couldn't stop replaying her words in my head, over and over again. I'm with someone else now. It burned, each repetition like a branding iron against my chest. I had been naive. I had been so naive. Every text, every whispered promise, every intimate conversation had been nothing more than an act. A performance. But there was one thing I couldn't understand. If she was with this other guy, why hadn't she told me sooner? Why string me along for all these months, pretending to build something real? Why the secrecy? My heart pounded as I stared at the glowing screen of my phone, her message still fresh in my mind. I wanted to rage. To scream. But I was in too deep now to just sit back and let it go. I couldn't let her get away with this. That's when I decided, I was going to confront her, but not in the way she expected. The next morning, I decided to visit her office. It was a bold move, maybe even reckless, but I needed answers, and I wasn't going to wait any longer. I couldn't. The unanswered questions were gnawing at me, relentlessly. What had I missed? Who was the guy? What had I done to deserve this? I needed to find out. As I stood in the elevator, rising up the glass building that seemed to look down on everyone else from its ivory tower, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. My hands were sweaty, but there was a sharp clarity in my mind. I was going to walk in there, ask her who he was, and demand the truth. She would owe me that much. When the elevator doors opened, I found myself standing in the sleek lobby of her office building. I walked past the polished floors and glass walls, my eyes scanning the room for her. Her office wasn't far. I knew exactly where it was. Hell, I'd been there often enough, standing in the doorway pretending to be just another colleague. The irony stung now. The receptionist gave me a nod, as if she recognized me, but I didn't stop. I wasn't there for pleasantries. I was there to expose the truth. I stood outside her office door, hesitant for just a moment before I pushed it open. The room was filled with chatter, businesspeople typing away at their computers, their voices a dull hum in the background. But as I stepped in, all noise seemed to fade. The moment I laid eyes on Emma, sitting at her desk, typing away, the world seemed to stop. She looked up from her screen, and for the briefest moment, her eyes widened in shock. There was something there, something she wasn't expecting. Something that flickered in her expression before she masked it with that perfect smile. "What are you doing here?" Her voice was soft, too calm. Too rehearsed. I didn't hesitate. I walked straight to the desk and set my hands down on it, leaning in, not breaking eye contact. "I want to know who he is," I said, my voice tight, the anger simmering under the surface. Her smile faltered for a fraction of a second, and that was enough for me to know. She was lying. The facade was crumbling. She wasn't the perfect, poised woman I had once thought she was. She was just another actress in a show I didn't even know I was part of. "Who's the guy?" I pressed, my voice rising a little. I couldn't stop myself now. "Who is he, Emma?" She exhaled sharply, closing her laptop and leaning back in her chair, her fingers drumming nervously on the desk. "It's complicated. I didn't want to hurt you, but it's over now. I've moved on." The words came at me like daggers, and I felt a sudden surge of betrayal. Moved on. This wasn't moving on. This was a deception. Manipulation. But then, something unexpected happened. Emma's face twisted into an unreadable expression, and for the first time, I saw something that terrified me: guilt. "I never meant for it to go this far," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. There was a flicker of something in her eyes, regret, perhaps, but it was fleeting. She quickly pushed it aside, almost as if she realized it was too late to feel anything for me. But then, she said something that stopped me cold, something that turned everything I thought I knew upside down. He's someone you know. Someone close to you." I blinked, her words hitting me like a ton of bricks. What did she mean? Someone I knew? It didn't make sense. My mind raced, trying to piece together the puzzle. My thoughts scrambled, but I couldn't come up with anything. "Who?" I whispered, my throat tightening. My voice was no longer filled with anger, it was filled with confusion. How could she be so calm, so detached, while I was slowly unraveling? She looked down at her hands, as though unable to meet my gaze. "You'll find out soon enough. It was never supposed to be like this." But Suddenly, the door swung open behind me, and I froze. My blood ran cold as the figure stepped into the room. I didn't have to look to know who it was. David. It was David, my closest friend. The one person I had trusted more than anyone else. The guy who had always been there for me. And now, here he was, stepping into the room as if everything was normal, as if I wouldn't recognize the betrayal written all over his face. I turned to Emma, my mind a whirlwind of disbelief. You've been with him all this time? You knew, didn't you?" I looked at David, my words sinking in like poison. "You knew all along." David tried to smile, but it was weak, desperate. "Look, man. I didn't mean for it to happen like this." "No," I shook my head, stepping back, a strange calm overtaking me. This was worse than anything I could have imagined. Not only had Emma betrayed me, but my best friend, my brother, had been part of it. This wasn't just a simple betrayal. It was a conspiracy. The world felt like it was crashing around me. But amidst the shock and pain, a new feeling began to rise within me. Revenge. And I would make sure they both paid. The air in Emma's office felt suffocating, as if the walls were closing in around me. David stood there, his face twitching with discomfort, unable to meet my eyes. And Emma looked like she was waiting for the world to explode, her gaze darting nervously between me and him. I didn't know what to say. I couldn't process what was happening, couldn't even fathom how deep the betrayal ran. Emma and David. My best friend and the woman I thought I loved. I had trusted them both with pieces of my soul, and now, here they were, standing in front of me, the truth inescapable. David finally broke the silence. Look, man, it's not what you think. It just happened. I scoffed, taking a step back, anger swelling within me. What do you mean, just happened? I barked. You've been seeing her behind my back. Both of you have been playing me for months. Don't act like this is some accident. You don't just happen into someone's life like this. Emma's eyes flicked toward David, a silent exchange passing between them before she spoke. You don't understand, she said, her voice trembling with something, guilt. Fear. It wasn't supposed to go this way. Then what way was it supposed to go? I asked, my voice rising in frustration. You were supposed to be honest with me. You were supposed to be my friend, David. And you, I shot a look at Emma, you were supposed to be the woman I trusted. We had plans, damn it. I thought you, both of you, were different. David stepped forward, his expression now one of pain, but I wasn't having it. I'm sorry, okay? I don't know what you want me to say. My fists clenched, and I could feel the blood rushing to my head. Everything was unraveling. The foundation of my entire life, my friendships, everything I thought was real, was crumbling before my eyes. What's the truth, Emma? I asked, my voice low but heavy with accusation. What's the real story? Tell me now. Emma took a deep breath, looking almost relieved that I was asking her. You deserve the truth, she said quietly. I didn't mean for it to go this far, I swear. But David and we've been involved for months now. At first, it wasn't intentional. But then, we got close. Too close. I blinked, trying to make sense of her words. So you were never really with me. You were using me to keep things from David? To keep up appearances? No. She shook her head vehemently. I wasn't using you. I care about you. But I was scared. I knew it was wrong, but... But what? I interrupted, bitterness choking me. You were scared, so you used me as a placeholder. Was that it? Or did you just like playing both sides? Did you think I wouldn't find out? David winced, stepping back, clearly torn between trying to apologize and his loyalty to Emma. But the damage was done. There was no going back now. Emma looked away, and for the first time since I'd known her, I saw something that I couldn't ignore, weakness. She wasn't the confident, poised woman I'd fallen for. She was a liar, someone who was desperately trying to salvage something that couldn't be fixed. And suddenly, it wasn't just about Emma and David anymore. Something else had shifted. Something darker. I never wanted to hurt you, Emma said, her voice strained. But I didn't know how to break it to you. It was easier to keep you both around, pretending everything was fine. So you think this is about being fine? I spat. You think I just want things to be easy? I've been the one doing everything for you, helping you with your career, being there for you when you needed someone. And this is what I get in return. Lies and deceit. Emma stepped back as though she couldn't handle the weight of my words. But something in me shifted, a dangerous calm taking over. This wasn't just about being betrayed anymore. This was about revenge, a cold, calculated plan to make them both feel the weight of their actions. But there was something more. Something that I hadn't anticipated. Something that made the entire situation worse than I could have imagined. "I don't want this," David finally muttered, as if he was talking to himself more than to me. "I never wanted to hurt you." But Emma was right. It was too late to stop it. We can't undo what's happened. I didn't know if it was the guilt or something else, but David's words made my blood run cold. The air seemed to thicken, and I realized, with a sickening feeling, that they were both much deeper than I had initially thought. It wasn't just a betrayal. It wasn't just a simple affair. This was something far worse. "You think I don't know what this is?" I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "You think I can't see through the facade? I don't believe it was an accident. I don't believe it was just complicated." I turned to David. "You and Emma have been planning something. And I don't know what it is yet, but I'll find out." David flinched at my words, his eyes widening in fear. "What are you talking about?" But I wasn't finished. I wasn't even close. "Don't play innocent," I hissed. "You think I haven't seen the way you've been acting around me lately? How you've been distant, like you're trying to keep me out of the loop. All of a sudden, you're both too busy to hang out. You think I didn't notice? You were plotting something from the beginning. All those times you had to work late, those times you didn't show up when I needed you. That wasn't just a coincidence. This was planned. All of it." Emma's face turned pale, her eyes flicking nervously toward David. David, meanwhile, was completely silent. He looked like he was suffocating under the weight of my words, but instead of defending himself, he took a step back, his expression one of disbelief, as though he was realizing that I had cracked the surface of their secrets. I could see the panic in Emma's eyes, the cracks in her perfect little world. I wasn't just confronting her anymore. I was uncovering something that neither of them wanted me to find. The more I spoke, the more they faltered. The story they had been selling, of mistakes, of simple misunderstandings, was falling apart, piece by piece. And then it hit me. They weren't just in a relationship. They were in this together. I didn't know how far back it went, but I could feel the weight of it. They had been plotting behind my back, manipulating me to keep me in the dark. The fact that they both had been keeping secrets from me was bad enough, but the fact that this was all part of a bigger scheme? That shattered me in ways I couldn't yet understand. It was no longer just about revenge. This was something far more dangerous. It was about uncovering the truth. And I wasn't stopping until I had all the answers. The days after the confrontation were a blur. Each one passed like a slow, suffocating drag, and the weight of what Emma and David had done to me hung heavy in the pit of my stomach. I couldn't stop thinking about it, their betrayal, the lies, the secret plot they had woven together. It wasn't just that they'd cheated on me. It was that they had deceived me, manipulated me, and used me as a pawn in their game. I had tried to move past it, to let the anger fade, but that was impossible. The betrayal had dug too deep. There was no way to ignore it. I knew one thing for sure now, I wasn't going to let them get away with this. Revenge wasn't just about anger anymore. It was about control. It was about taking back what they had stolen from me. And to do that, I had to be patient, calculated, and above all, precise. I couldn't rush into this. I needed a plan that would hit them both where it hurt, a plan that would not only bring them down but also show them that their lies had consequences. I was going to take away their carefully constructed lives, piece by piece, until they realized just how much they had cost me. I spent the next few days observing. I watched Emma carefully, studying her every move, trying to figure out her routine. It didn't take long to realize something important. Emma was far more ambitious than I had ever given her credit for. She had spent years building a reputation at her company, climbing the ladder with a mix of charm, intelligence, and, yes, manipulation. She had a goal, and that goal was to make it to the top, no matter who she had to step on to get there. I would use that against her. David, on the other hand, was easier to figure out. He wasn't as polished or professional as Emma. His ego was bigger than his actual accomplishments, and it was clear he had been using me as a crutch for far too long. He wanted to be important, but he didn't have the drive or intelligence to make it happen. He wanted a shortcut. And that was where I could hit him the hardest, by stripping away the comfort of our friendship, the safety net he had always relied on. I would make sure he couldn't come crawling back to me when everything fell apart. The first step in my plan was to take Emma's career down. Slowly, subtly, but with precision. Emma had worked her way into a position where she had influence, but she wasn't untouchable. Her power rested on her carefully curated image. If I could destroy that image, she would have nothing left. I started by digging. I knew her connections, her colleagues, and the projects she had worked on. I spent hours researching, reaching out to people who had worked with her, disgruntled colleagues, former associates, anyone who might be willing to spill their secrets. I found a few sources who were more than eager to talk about Emma's manipulative behavior. There were stories of her taking credit for other people's work, of her ruthlessly climbing the corporate ladder by stabbing others in the back. But the real gem came from a former coworker who had been pushed out by Emma's machinations. This person had evidence, emails, documents, and a trail of lies that could ruin Emma's career in an instant. I knew I had to be careful. If I moved too quickly, too aggressively, I could tip Emma off. I had to wait for the right moment. So, I bided my time, quietly collecting information, piecing it all together like a jigsaw puzzle. When everything was in place, I would send a well-timed, anonymous tip to her superiors, along with the evidence I had gathered. The timing had to be perfect, just as Emma was beginning to rise within the company. The second part of my plan was to destroy David's reputation. This one was more personal, and honestly, it brought me no pleasure to do it. But I knew it had to be done. David had to feel the sting of being abandoned, not just by me, but by everyone who had ever trusted him. He was the kind of person who relied on other people to prop him up. And without me, he would be exposed as the hollow, self-serving person he truly was. David's career was in the same pathetic state it had always been, nowhere. He had no real friends other than me. He had been relying on me for years to get ahead, to make connections, to be the one who opened doors for him. Without me, he was nothing. I started by leaking subtle hints to people in his social circle. I spread rumors about his laziness, about his tendency to take credit for things he hadn't done. I mentioned how he would always let people down when it mattered most, how he was an unreliable friend and a weak ally. I made sure to plant these seeds with people who could spread them further, without ever knowing I was behind it. The more these whispers spread, the more David's connections would erode, and he would be left with nothing. Alone. Desperate. The final piece of my plan was the most satisfying, the public confrontation. I had spent enough time watching Emma and David, learning their patterns, figuring out where their weaknesses were. The truth was, they weren't the power couple they thought they were. They were just two people who had gotten too comfortable, who had underestimated how much pain they had caused. I knew Emma's biggest fear was her carefully crafted image. If I could tear that apart publicly, she would have no choice but to watch her entire world collapse. But I wasn't going to do it quietly. I wasn't going to leave her any way out. I organized a meeting, a casual, corporate event. Emma's company was hosting an important presentation, and she was scheduled to be the keynote speaker. I knew this was her moment, the one she had been working towards for months. The one that would set her on the path to a promotion, to being the company's golden child. I arranged to be in the front row, and just as she began her speech, I dropped the bomb. I didn't shout, didn't make a scene at first. Instead, I stood up and walked toward the stage, calm and deliberate, my eyes locked on hers as I approached. The room went silent. She froze. For a moment, I could see the panic in her eyes, the realization that her carefully controlled world was about to come crashing down. I pulled out a file from my briefcase and handed it to one of the employees standing nearby. "I think your CEO should take a look at these," I said coolly, my voice carrying through the room. "They'll explain a lot about how Emma managed to climb to the top of this company." The file contained everything: the emails, the stories, the proof that Emma had been manipulating, lying, and stepping over people to get ahead. The evidence was irrefutable. Emma's eyes darted from me to the crowd, her face draining of color as the documents were passed around, each page more damning than the last. For a long moment, there was silence, but I could see the realization dawning on Emma. She had no escape. Her career was finished. And then I turned to David. He had been standing off to the side, watching the entire thing unfold, looking like he was about to pass out. His face was a mixture of disbelief and fear, but I saw something else in his eyes: regret. "I'll take care of you later," I said to him, my voice icy. "Right now, you've got to figure out how you're going to crawl out of this mess." The room erupted in chaos, whispers and gasps filling the air as people began to process what had just happened. Emma's perfect world was crumbling around her. I walked out of the room calmly, my heart racing, but my mind sharp and clear. I had executed my revenge perfectly. They had made me feel small, insignificant. But now they were the ones who would feel the weight of their lies. And as for me, I felt the cold satisfaction of knowing that I had taken back what was mine. The aftermath was everything I could have hoped for, and so much worse than I had ever imagined. Emma's career was in ruins. She was escorted out of the company building that day, the whispers of betrayal and manipulation following her every step. The CEO, who had once seen her as the golden child, now saw her as a liability. The emails, the lies, the secretive underhanded dealings, all of it was exposed in front of everyone. She'd lost everything: her position, her future, her reputation. No one would ever trust her again. But that wasn't the best part. No, the real satisfaction came when I heard the rumors spread, how she had begged her way back into the CEO's office, tried to plead her case, claiming that it was all a misunderstanding, that it wasn't as bad as it seemed. But no one cared anymore. Her cries for forgiveness fell on deaf ears, drowned out by the weight of her actions. Emma had been the queen of her world, but I had brought her reign to a crashing end. Then there was David. I thought the damage I did to him would be a relief, but it was more than that: it was the ultimate betrayal. My best friend, the person I had trusted above everyone else, now had nothing left. No one would ever look at him the same way. His reputation was destroyed. His career, non-existent. The more the rumors spread about his involvement with Emma, the more he was ostracized. He'd lost everything, and I couldn't help but watch as he spiraled into the loneliness I had felt when I first discovered the truth. But here's the thing about revenge. It never really ends. I thought that by breaking them both, by destroying their lives, I'd be free from the shackles of my pain, but there was a darker side to all of this. I had gotten what I wanted, sure. Emma and David were broken. But in the process, I had lost something too. Not just the trust of the people who once surrounded me, not just the friendships I had torn apart, but a part of my own humanity. Every action I took, every step I made to destroy them, had slowly eaten away at the person I used to be. I was no longer the same. I had become the villain in this story. And that realization hit me like a ton of bricks. As I stood alone in the empty room, watching the chaos unfold around me, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Emma and David had paid their price, but the emptiness in me grew deeper, more insatiable. I had taken everything from them, but what had it truly cost me? What had I lost in the process? I should have felt triumphant. I should have felt satisfied. But all I felt was hollow. It was then that I realized, revenge, no matter how sweet, always has its consequences. And those consequences were waiting for me, just out of sight. But that's not the end of the story. You see, there's more to this than just revenge. The game I had played with Emma and David wasn't the final move. No, there are more pieces on the board. People I haven't even begun to expose. I thought I'd been clever, I thought I'd destroyed them both, but what if they weren't the only ones who betrayed me? What if I had been manipulated all along? The truth is, there's someone out there, someone who's been pulling the strings behind all of this. Someone who knew my every move, every weakness. Someone who wants me to think I won, only for me to realize that I'm just a pawn in a much bigger game. The question isn't just about how Emma and David fell from grace. The real question is, who's been controlling this game all along? I'll uncover their secrets. I'll expose the darkness that lies beneath the surface. And when I find out who's been using me, who's been orchestrating this twisted dance of manipulation, I'll make them pay in ways they never saw coming. But for now, I leave you with this: revenge is never as sweet as you think. And sometimes, the price we pay to get even is far greater than we ever imagined. Stay tuned for the next chapter of this story, where the real mastermind is revealed, and the lines between villain and victim blur forever. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Trust me, you'll want to stick around for what happens next. Because if you think this is over, you're about to be shocked. The game has just begun.